So you can see the kind of full list of speakers there. The first speaker up is Pete Atherton. I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. At that timer for 6 minutes. Right, when was the last time you went to an education event and people weren't talking about AI? So I'm the guy who's going to be talking about AI. So there are some slides, but I'll start by just talking to you if that's okay with you. So I work in teacher education. So I work with, I teach secondary English student teachers. And as an exercise related to creative and imaginative writing, I took them to an art gallery last year. And the idea was, as you can imagine, they looked at some artwork and were inspired to create some creative writing. And then we looked at how that might be relevant to their students and how they could develop their creative writing skills and so on and so on. And I thought, while I'm there, I should really create a piece of writing myself and be vulnerable around them and show them what I've written and get some feedback from them. A few months later, through ChatGPT, this GPT called Creative Writing Coach appeared. And I started asking the students if they'd be interested in using it. And they really valued the feedback that they were getting, because obviously it was non-judgmental and it wasn't like being wounded. It wasn't like a volley of blows. It wasn't a human being with their agenda and their biases giving them feedback. It was completely impartial. And I thought, I'm onto something here. This is really interesting. So I developed that by thinking I want to engage in dialogue with this so that we can sort of flip this notion that what we do is prompt the AI. So essentially the working title of this, not that title, it's moved on since then. The working title of this is who's prompting whom? Are we prompting the AI, or can we train the AI to prompt us to create some interesting ways to explore the notion of creative writing and maybe more broadly creativity? So hopefully that makes sense. There's some gratuitous AI images on every slide, so just roll with the punches, it'll be fine. So this is really about how through ChatGPT, this creative writing coach can help us with creative writing. And what I did was use a ethnography approach, which some of you may be familiar with or not. So it's about, I think, to explore something like this, a lot of the theoretical frameworks tend to be quite redundant around AI. And what I wanted to do was explore sort of multiple theoretical frameworks to an extent without getting too confused by things. So this is at the intersection of autoethnography, enactivism as a theoretical framework, and of course the creative writing process in general. So I'm using ethnography as a methodology to study non-human objects and systems. So it's a way of gathering data. So through this dialogue between me and the AI and me, I'm going to be gathering I have already gathered some quite rich data, which hopefully should provide some sort of fresh perspectives on AI and creativity in education. So enactivism is the theoretical framework, and it's really about sort of, there's an image to illustrate that a little bit later on. It's about the sort of entanglement of the researcher in the systems that surround them, the technology that they're using, their context, and so on and so on. So it's about creating autoethnographic writing eventually viewed through an enactivist lens. Okay, and using autoethnography as well. So autoethnography, you've got this personal narrative, which will create some new creative enterprises from my point of view. It's an ongoing reflexive approach. It's about processes, also autoethnographic. I'm going to create some autoethnographic writing. And it's really about this impact on the researcher's creative process, this interplay, this subtle, complex interplay between the AI and the creative writer. So essentially this is about assisting creative writing to the extent to which it can assist creative writing. This is not about generating creative writing. It's a very subjective statement, but that would be hideous, wouldn't it? If this is really about generating creative writing through AI. It's really about empowering the creative writer to develop new ways of thinking through dialogue with the AI. And I suppose more broadly, what about the issue of authorship and originality and so on? And these are, I suppose, wedded to the notion of ethics, and more of that we get some time later on. There's some ethical challenges associated with all of this. So I'm doing some semi-structured interviews with a creative writing coach about poetry that I wrote about a grandfather clock that just happens to be in an art gallery. And I will be using thematic analysis to interpret the data. And so far, I've noticed quite a complex relationship between AI and human creativity. It works both ways, and through all of that, it's problematizing the notion of authorship and originality and ethics. All of these are thrown into confusion, almost anarchy. Somebody mentioned the word anarchy before. But what happens through the dialogue, and my students found this, and I found this as well so far, it's early days with this project, is that it does encourage deep reflection on your own creative writing process, right? So it's not about the AI giving you ideas, it's about the AI prompting you to think about ways of, to think about new ways of seeing, I suppose, and new ways of creating. So the conclusions that I've come to, that's me on the left. And that's the AI on the right. So what does that really mean? Well, the AI generated some sort of warm colours to the left and raw clinical images to the right. That subtle interplay, this ongoing interplay between the AI prompting me prompting the AI, and the sort of dance between them is something that I'm exploring. And that image, I think, represents that quite well. So might it encourage deeper exploration of ethical and authorial issues? Well, I did start a pilot on this, and it didn't really go anywhere. It was a small sample. That's my timer, which I'd imagine Craig's going to put his hand up in a sec. It didn't really go anywhere, this pilot project, because the students, it got through the ethics committee really easy, thanks to that. So that was no problem, right? Minimal risk, as you can imagine. But when it came to issues of intellectual property, of potential copyright issues, of my participants viewing their own creative endeavours as, I suppose, a commercial product, potentially, then it all fell by the wayside. They started to become a little bit paranoid, to be honest, about, will somebody steal my work? Will somebody pass off my poetry as their own? So a few things to move forward with, really. So it's probably appropriate now to ask some questions, if anyone has any questions about implications of this.